Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm a psychedelic integration coach. Today we're going to talk a little bit about my experience with Ibogaine. I want to talk a little bit about my first experience with Ibogaine, which happened 9 years ago at a facility called Clear Sky. I just recently had the opportunity to sit with Ibogaine again at a different facility. It is one that I actually do coaching for. It's called Ibogaine Riviera Maya. They're very, very different experiences, both lovely and helpful, but very different. This medicine is definitely served very differently at different locations. I worked really hard to try to find a place that incorporated all of the things I knew were kind of missing or could have been added to my initial experience to make it easier for me to be set up for success going home. So as I mentioned before, I did use Ibogaine 9 years ago. At that point in my life, I was hopelessly addicted to heroin. I'd been addicted to heroin for 8 years, but that was just the tip of the iceberg, right? That was just the symptom of much deeper problems. I had PTSD. I had a lot of different traumas, a lot sexual in nature that my brain had locked me out of. I didn't recognize at the time how powerful of a medium and channel I was. I was really trying to desensitize a lot of my gifts and my ability to feel very deeply on top of premonitions that I would receive. And they always were like about death. So I was really dark. I was like a dark teenager, man. I was always very suicidal, diagnosed with depression, anxiety. And my first experience with heroin was very honestly, it was a suicide attempt. I just lost 2 people close to me in a car accident the day before. I experienced about 3 weeks worth of trauma. Lost my job, got raped, all in a very short period of time. And I was done, right? So I lied to this person that I seen from high school who was super high and was like, yeah, I've done heroin before. So I went 0 to 60. I shot up right away. I didn't cut any corners and I fell in love right away. And I was off to the races. I went to my first treatment center a month later. I probably have gone to a total of 12 different times, different stints in rehabs, both the county funded kind and the really bougie, fancy, nice, holistic ones. I eventually got addicted to rehab, right? The drugs weren't working, hated that shit, but I couldn't stay clean. I couldn't get to these traumas that were running my life from the background. So I would get high for a day just to go back to rehab so I could be the cool girl and be safe, essentially, not have any responsibilities. So of course my insurance was running out at the age of 26. I had no other options. And my parents came to me and offered me this trip to Mexico to go sit with Ibogaine. I had discovered Ibogaine about 2 years before that, but wasn't going to come to my parents and be like, hey, will you pay for this? So they came to me. And at that point, I honestly had given up hope entirely. I literally went to do the Ibogaine just so that when I died of an overdose or whatever it was, that my parents would know I worked as hard as I could. So I could not have been prepared for the ways that this medicine was going to change me. So again, my first experience with Ibogaine was very different than my second, not just because I was getting off of substances, but it's the way that these different facilities operate. So my first experience was at a place called Clear Sky. And like I said, don't get me wrong, it worked. However, their protocol, for whatever reason you're going, is a week-long stay. A few days into that stay, they give you a giant flood dose of the medicine. Then you have a few days to kind of integrate with no real support in that integration process. And then they send you home. And the amazing thing about Ibogaine is when you use it to get off of a physically addicting substance, you don't withdraw. But that doesn't mean that you feel okay or normal. Somebody I coached described it as feeling foreign in your body. You have a lot of emotions that were just uncovered that are coming to the surface and are spilling out of you. Your body feels like a foreign vessel. Your nervous system feels like it's been turned on for the first time. And you feel alive and ready to go live. But at the same time, you got hit by a Mack truck. It's also very difficult to sleep. And it takes a while for the medicine to integrate. And so I became a psychedelic integration coach because I knew how much help I could have used after my first experience. So yeah, I fumbled for a little bit. When I got home after my experience, there were a few times that I tried to get high. I tried to fit a square peg into a round hole, just literally because I didn't know who else to be. It's a self-induced ego death, right? And I was, a convict, a junkie, a freaking prostitute, right, for years. who was I supposed to be now? I didn't even know how to take those next steps or what that meant. And for me, being an experiential learner, the times I tried to get high really just helped to solidify to me the changes that took place inside of me, and that this was no longer going to be an option for me, that it wasn't going to feel the same way or be the same thing. So eventually I just surrendered to the universe. I remembered in one of these rehabs that I found out I'm really gifted at meditating. And I watched a documentary called The Hidden Teachings of Jesus Christ that talked about being able to meditate and get to the point where you can get high on your own supply. And so I was like, that's it, boom, that's how I'm gonna get high, just like true junkie fashion, right? Still, that was the thing. So I stopped chasing the dope and I started chasing spirituality and my conscious connection. So here I am 9 years later, psychedelic integration coach. I am by no means at all perfect. I'm very honest about the fact that for me, recovery does not mean sobriety. Those two things are not synonymous. I know a lot of people who are in sobriety who are not in recovery, and all of these traumas are still pulling the strings from the background and affecting every other area of their life. So I didn't want sobriety, truth be told. Like I couldn't chase something that I didn't want. I didn't really even understand sobriety, because everybody has a different definition of that, right? Like some people will say you can't drink a kombucha because it's got too much alcohol in it, or you can't take cough syrup, or whatever the thing is. There's not like any definition, and I struggled with that. And I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to experience any experience life had to offer without being worried that it was going to have control over me. And this meant substances, food, work, relationships, because again, this will show up in all other areas. And just because you remove the substance doesn't mean that you're not making decisions out of fear or trying to avoid these traumas and things. So because of my experience with Ibogaine, I very clearly learned in that experience how powerful these spirits and medicines can be used when used intentionally and used to explore our consciousness. And I decided to give myself permission to continue on that path and work with different medicines and sit in different circles. I'm going to be doing a whole series on education about the spiritual components of all of these different medicines, what they're like, what they could be for, but not that just that. I'm going to do an entire educational series on the spiritual components of the bad drugs, right? That are just really misunderstood spirits and also trying to help teach us something. So it had been 9 years, and again, I work with Ibogaine Riviera Maya, and I was given the opportunity to go down there and check out their experience, which again runs much differently than Clear Sky did. And this time, aside from some supplements that I was taking for hormone support and like ADHD, I try to mix my supplements around so I don't get attached to just one thing. So, kratom, different hormone support things, sometimes Moda, different things, but my goal this time around was to heal physically. So Ibogaine Riviera Maya works really differently, and this is part of why I chose to work with them, is that the price, the length of stay, the amount of medicine you get, all of that really depends on what you need, and that's how it should be. This is a very personal process, and everybody needs different things, right? So because I wasn't, getting off of anything, I only needed a week and did a smaller dose. So I just did one dose, but I was there with people who were getting off of more powerful things like opiates and and methamphetamine and stuff. And so they were given multiple doses and a longer period of time. And this helps you to better receive the medicine, have a better experience with the medicine. It helps your body to better integrate the medicine, and really just kind of sets you up for success. Like I said, that in general was much different. It's really apparent that the owners of Riviera Maya actually used the medicine to get clean, by the way that they structured it. They're also the only place I've really found that really includes aftercare. I have heard that there's another place now that just opened that does, but thus far, like I said, it's very apparent that Riviera Maya, they're very committed to helping people. They're very real. What I liked about them is how real they are. Like, they all have a story. They're not just some scientist or psychiatrist that heard about the benefits of this medicine, studied it, and now are going to be making buku bucks serving it, right? So that is what I really appreciated as a real ass person. Like, that's what I want. And they were super accommodating. It was a very nice house, pool. I got to take a brilliant bath in this giant spa, jacuzzi tub. They take you everywhere you want. That's another thing. When I was at Clear Sky, I was stuck in a house. Was it a mansion on the beach? Absolutely. That's beautiful. But at that time, I hated being alone. And what do you know? I was the only one there at the time. But I was just in this house with this experience that I didn't know what to do. So Riviera Maya, they really push you to remember how to live again, right? They go to the ocean every day, sometimes multiple times a day. The water is super healing and amazing for you coming back into your body. They take you out to eat. We went to pyramids. I mean, they take you on excursions. I know one time they took people skydiving. So yeah, they really remind you how to live again, which is huge because so many people in that space come to Ibogaine because they've forgotten how to live. So yeah, I had a really, really wonderful experience there, and I'm definitely grateful to be working with them. The medicine itself, like the journey, was different but similar to me, and how it shows up for me. It's a very different experience for everybody, but for me, Ibogaine specifically helps you to face death, what we call death, right? Not just the ending of a life, though. It's like the ending of the cycles of a job, of ourselves, right? Our ego selves, the end of relationships. But yeah, and it helps you to understand like the eternity of life, and how everyone you've ever lost is always with you, and how you will continue on, and not to like fear death, but at the same time, it shows you very clearly that when you die, your story is over. So it also makes you very appreciative to have a body and for your story. And you're like, no, I want to write this story. Like, I'm excited to write this story. And then, so, afterwards, again, there's still some kind of discomfort this time. So the first time around, I felt like I got hit by a train. This time around, I like popped out of bed. I was like ready to be alive. I felt like 10 years younger. I jumped out of bed, took a shower real quick, was like, not enough water, give me more. Jumped in the pool, did some breath work. Yeah, and just felt really alive. So that was definitely different. So Ibogaine in general is a very different psychedelic than most common psychedelics that somebody might have used. The closest thing you could possibly compare it to would be DMT, in the sense that a DMT experience is internal, right? Like you go inside, it's not projected out into your reality. So Ibogaine works the same way. If you were to open your eyes and look around, everything looks exactly as it is, but there's a wave, like a rainbow. It's like a rainbow wave that's moving through everything, and it makes you kind of dizzy, like you can't get your vision straight. So this is where people might get sick, is because they try to fight the medicine and open their eyes, and it's kind of like getting the spins when you've been drinking. So it makes you nauseous and dizzy to force you to close your eyes, because once you close your eyes, you are on a journey. And for me, it's always through light. So it's darkness, but I'm seeing light. Yeah, sometimes it's just balls of light, sometimes it's images of light, and images created from light. But it's almost like the communication is very clear. My grandma has showed up for me both times. The first time, she was my guide the entire time. The second time, she just kind of popped in to say hi. This time around, I feel like I definitely integrated a lot of imposter syndrome. It kind of showed me that the hardest part of my path in this 9 years was not actually getting off of heroin. It was getting past the conditioning put on me because I was a heroin addict. It was getting past, this self-doubt, that this alternative path to recovery, and the fact that I really am and feel free. I feel cured. Goes against the popular science and the narrative, so much so that, of course, it made me afraid to speak out on it to the capacity in which I feel called to. So it really helped me to integrate that voice and understand that voice a little bit more. It's not like it's gone, but I know how to talk to her and listen to it. Yeah. So, and like I said, but it's different for everybody. You can't go into any of these medicines with any expectations. That is what kind of sets you up to be bummed out. The less expectations you can have, the better it ends up being. But I know a majority of the people that I work with, at least for coaching, have a very spiritual experience in terms of like meeting with their guides. What's nice about Riviera Maya and doing the medicine more than once is sometimes that first round can be a little intense, a little bit harder, like kind of like look at what you're doing to yourself, right? And then the second time around can usually be a little bit lighter and like, but look at how powerful you are. So having more than one session with the medicine definitely helps you to, kind of get a fuller experience, which is definitely really helpful. So I would say, honestly, if I had one wish, like just one wish, it wouldn't be for money or riches or fame. I would wish that everybody in the world would have the opportunity, at the very least, to experience this medicine should they choose. Because I know that if we all did, man, the world would shift and change like that, and people would remember how to live and what is important, so that all of the rest of it would fall in line. So I feel very called and determined to help be the voice of this medicine, and not just that, other spirits and medicines who just want to be understood so that you can better work with them and understand yourself and more easily end the relationships with them that are meant to end. Yeah, I mean, and Ibogaine is incredible, not just for, addiction and mental health recovery, which is, of course, like I said, what it's known for. They're showing that it actually helps reverse and heal symptoms of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, dementia, nervous system disorders. There are people who have had infertility healed. I've worked with people who were only addicted to opiates because of back problems, and they left not only not addicted to opiates, but their back didn't hurt anymore. So its capacity to heal us on a physical level is what ceases to amaze me. So I'm looking forward to working with this medicine more. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, is the best way to get a hold of me. My email is cosmicsoulrecovery@gmail.com. Leave any questions you have in the comments. Again, I'm going to be creating more of a series that is geared towards education of all the different medicines, plant medicine and alien medicine, which is what I call medicine born of human inspiration. And I believe that with proper education and eliminating the shame and the stigma around our natural desire to want to explore our consciousness, that we could help and truly actually heal what we call addiction on a mass scale, because the need to run from ourselves once we understand this mechanism just becomes obsolete. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. And again, reach out if you need support. And thank you so much.